ever seen this facet of the Northeast? These reassuring, inspiring melodies wafting from the schools, fields overflowing with enthusiasm, laboratories bustling with activity, happiness abloom in many tea estates, the soothing cushion of delight that the common folk get from the Seva Prakalp, the well-studied nurturing of tradition and culture. All these glimpses are manifestations of the silent revolution in the Northeast. To bring about this revolution, we wove a net of education. We brought healthcare into the heart of many villages, and through research, we studied the land with its own culture and traditions like gems. Since 1977, we have sowed the seeds of education and helped it survive and thrive, for which we established the fundamental amenities, paid attention to the overall development of students, created a generation of dedicated teachers. Today, Vivekanand Kendra Vidyalaya is synonymous with quality education. Our schools have been incessantly shaping up generations of well-cultured citizens. We are instilling this affinity for education in the hearts and minds of the children of the tea estate workers. The Anandalayas are the ones behind these miracles. This overall progress is being achieved through the Arun Jyoti project. Vivekanand Kendra Institute of Culture, situated in Guwahati, is conducting in-depth research of the traditions and culture of the Northeast, and the natives of the land are very much a part of it. The seeds of this silent revolution were sown by the visionary Eknath Ji. The mantle of this mission has been held up by Vivekanand Kendra, and those who brought it to fruition are the countless volunteers of the Kendra. The mission wasn't easy, still isn't. The Northeast is blessed with nature's bounty, but corroded by myriad obstructions. We have been encountering and vanquishing every problem, setting foot on this terrain, dueling every adversity, gathering local support, and perpetually arranging for necessary resources. All this is possible only with your support, and this teamwork has given rise to 56 schools, 132 Anandalayas, 93 kindergarten schools, 3 healthcare centers, 2 hospitals, regular medical and surgery camps, and 2 mobile clinics. Come, let us reinforce this silent revolution in the Northeast. Join us. Support us.
Namaskaram. We are today dealing with the topic integration and education with a special reference to the northeast of India. India is a nation. A nation is not merely an intellectual concept. It is an emotional reality and entity. Its integration is achieved through joining the hearts that beat for it. For example, a river Ganga is just like a river to a geography student. But to everyone who adores her as a divine blessing, is emotionally and intensely connected to it. This association with the holy river has generated a culture of assimilation through ages. Take the example of the Himalayas. In geography, it is all of snow, stones, fossils, caves, forests, and wildlife. But these mountains, when taken emotionally, are nothing but the Shivalaya, and its people are never distant and separate from His grace and protection. These mountains are the symbol of tapas and worship, and its people are simple and sinless in all respects. Their closeness to the mountains has manifested as culture again. Under the umbrella of that culture, variety of experiences and insights have got expression. They have undergone integration and assimilation to form the foundation of our civilization. Living in the Himalayan hills and plains, the people of Northeast share the common emotional semblance with the rest of the nation, and here we have to examine how that semblance and synergy can be strengthened by the formal and informal processes of education. Friends, the goal of education is to bring out the best in man, the best in character, so it manifests as culture and established as civilization. Education aims to draw out the best in human excellence so that it pervades around him as progress, peace, harmony, and justice. As a result of this process, man evolves from lower levels to the higher dimensions, gradually but surely, and until the actualization of the supreme knowledge by him. Character and excellence are to be taken as the twin wings of a symbolic, ever-moving bird. That is education for our reference here today. Swami Vivekananda's two utterances make an appropriate introduction to the topic we are dealing now. We want that education by which character is formed, strength of mind is increased, the intellect is expanded, and by which one can stand on one's own feet. Again he says, it is man-making education all around that we want. India's northeast enriches every mainlander who is a chance or planned visitor here. People from the plains of India cross the Chicken Neck, 22-kilometer wide Indian territory at Siliguri that connects the northeast to the rest of India by road or rail, and reach the northeast comprising 7 states: Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Nagaland, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Manipur, often referred as the 7 sisters of India. The largest city of the region, Guwahati, with its crowded railway station and well-laid roads, is referred as the gateway to Northeast. Who are these mainland visitors? Most of them are members of different defense and paramilitary forces, posted here for a few years, and they wait eagerly for the next posting to pack off and say goodbye to this once isolated terrain. Then there are traders who try their luck in every sort of business and plantation. Some of them settle here and establish and never go back to their native plain states. They invite their relations here to invest and seek their luck. There are job seekers who work with every walk of the society, in every corner of the land, as laborers, drivers, rickshaw pullers, barbers, contract farmers, mechanics, contractors, and skilled workers. Tourists, journalists, and members of NGOs, most of them missionaries, too are detrained at Guwahati to study, report, and serve the people of the region. The information the people of the mainland obtains about the Northeast is from these tourists and journalists, and that is habitually colored, often exaggerated with subjective ideas and hypothetical perceptions. There is another class of visitors who occasionally fly down to the airports here to streamline the development and political processes going on. They are the very important persons comprising bureaucrats, politicians and ministers, representing the government and democratic agencies, including the mainland political formations. The people of the Northeast moved to the plains for a number of reasons. The major chunk of these movements comprise students who seek higher education in colleges and universities spread across the rest of India. The government of India has reserved quota for the Northeast students in most of the main Indian universities. Then there are people going to down south for better Medicare. They travel in small groups and stay near the hospitals until the course of treatment is over. There are well-to-do people going to various places of tourist interest for leisure, entertainment, fun and food. After the opening up of economy following globalization, good number of people, mainly youths, board on trains and go to other Indian states for seeking jobs. Then there are the privileged section of elites, politicians, bureaucrats and businessmen frequenting to Delhi and other large cities for purposes of their varied interests. These movements make people familiar with the pan-Indian lifestyles, culture and traditions. The resultant exchange of thoughts enriches the knowledge domain of the people of the Northeast about the variety of ways people pursue their lives in the rest of India. For them, there is an exposure to the greater India, and that is a great learning and opening up of the minds. This exposure contributes to integration indeed. This might be the reason a prominent student organization of the country made an initiative to organize exchange tours decades before, when communication was not much developed, and that initiative paved way for seeing the nation and its brothers and sisters in distant places. These participants got emotionally bound to these newfound brothers and sisters. Prolonged communication and the exchange of pleasantries and greetings by them are being continued even today. Those student participants in their later matured life have contributed in shaping public opinion on the challenges faced by the motherland and our role to pursue solutions. Many have become responsible citizens, leading their communities in positive direction. On August 14, you are aware, Pakistan-supported Taliban entered Kabul. The president of the Afghan government fled away, surrendering the capital to the fanatic militia. The people were left to try their luck. People in thousands gathered outside the airports to flee out of the country to escape torture and persecution from the hands of the fanatics. The world could see people becoming refugees in one's own country. Seeing the plight of the people there, a father in a family in India's remote northeast told to his children, "What is the use of wealth and assets if one's country is not there? Our self-respect and dignity is deeply connected with our country and its unity." These remarks from the father make the first lesson on patriotism for a child. And every child's first school is the family itself. If awareness is absent in the family on this aspect, probably due to reasons like isolation and limitations, then comes the role of the school with its teachers. Teachers in schools mold the minds of the students towards unconditional love for the motherland. The feeling gets deep-rooted by listening to stories, anecdotes from our history and freedom struggle, by singing patriotic songs, by observing national days like 15th August, 26th January and 2nd October. In the Northeast, these days are of great celebration and are occasions to showcase the community advancements in education, health, administration, and infrastructure. Schools that are successful in imparting value-based, culturally sensitive, and community-based education are highly successful in integrating the minds of the students under their care with the broad national stream of life. To quote an example, see what this doctor from the Changlang district of Arunachal Pradesh has to say about his upbringing during schooling. This district is notorious for occasional forced insurgency activities of the armed Naga factions, which so far the people have resisted with their patience and wisdom. I caught the student, who is a leading practitioner now in the medicine. Our schools were the real India. We celebrated every festival there. We came to know the diversities and richness of our motherland in our schools. Student years were the golden years of our life. From KG to Standard 10, those eventful holy years, it is highly nostalgic to remember those years. The very dust of my school is holy to me. The very air there is holy to me, and the place of pilgrimage, the tirtha to my life. Unquote. These words reflect how schools can shape responsible citizens for the country, provided they function with the vision of one India, one people. It should be noted that all schools do not entertain this vision of oneness, and that remains as a challenge to all forces that work towards a strong India to address to, with the determination and endurance. Schools with sectarian interests promote their agenda and neglect the lasting interests of the people as a strong nation. Empowering the institutions with a national orientation is the solution to meet the challenges posed by the vested interests in the educational scenario. Recently, again after the fall of the Afghan regime and the taking over of Kabul by the Taliban, thousands of stranded foreign nationals have to be evacuated from the conflict zone through strategic evacuation plans. India had to safely bring its nationals through the operation named Devi Shakti. One of the commandos engaged in this arduous task happened to be from the Northeast, and he wrote back the experiences to his teachers at school. By God's blessings, I could successfully participate in this mission in a foreign soil, and I could understand the greatness of our motherland and its acceptance as I was taught in my school days. Thanks to my teachers for their prayers and lessons that made me a patriotic Indian of pride and courage. This again highlights how education in right earnest is the cementing force in strengthening the feelings and actions for the nation. If you travel by air from the Northeast to any other Indian cities, you come across air hostesses from Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, and other states who are fluent in English, Hindi, Assamese, apart from their mother tongue. Languages are not meant for creating frictions for narrow ends, but are tools to know each other and broaden the mindscape for development and growth. As many languages one knows, that much proficient the person becomes. In this aspect, everyone in the Northeast is well versed in 2 or more languages other than one's mother tongue, a feature quite unfamiliar in many other parts of the country. This achievement is due to the availability of the variety of languages in the region. Each language coexists and flourishes with all other languages. A nation is a totality. The totality makes sense when there are constituent components or units. We cannot conceive the totality without acceptance and reference to the parts. Education strengthens the channels of togetherness through sports, arts and creative expressions of the people. There are very active literary and cultural organizations in almost all parts of the Northeast. They promote the preservation of the cultural icons, imagery, and impulses of the communities. When education emphasizes the similarities of these expressions through schooling and research, it is easy to appreciate the totality with the unit entities. The connections are easily understandable. Whether it is Gujarat or Tamil Nadu or in the plains of the Brahmaputra in the northeast, a river is sacred to every Indian. One can see the devoted minds offering salutations to the river in all these places. As life of the people is religiously connected to land and water bodies in every part of India, the same channel of unity has to be strengthened by the process of education. In any part of the country, digging the land for making a house begins with a religious ceremony. This is true to all communities of the Northeast too. The land is holy, the water is holy, the flora and fauna are expressions of the divinity. This basic philosophy is the core principle of all indigenous expressions in any part of the country, and so in the Northeast too. As life is a web of connections, where every connection is important, forces that hold the connections are to be nourished and strengthened. The people of the Northeast understand these connections in their own unique ways. That is why hundreds of communities have been living together here since centuries, supporting and nourishing among themselves without projectable animosity and discord. Even an illiterate is highly cultured in his understanding and appreciation of the connections of life. He is not in any way antagonistic to the deity the other worships, not in any way in competition to the mode of worship of the other. Forget about hatred or derogation. Schools that appreciate the simplicity and richness of the cultural moorings of the people are on the rise in every part of the Northeast these days. I could see a school which has a welcome statement of Mother and motherland are greater than heaven. Janani Janmabhumischa Sargadapi Giriyasi. Boldly written as its mission statement on its walls. There are schools which take up loss of culture, loss of identity as the vision statement of their educational initiatives. As a result, the changes are too apparent. Once it appeared that the forces that ignored and weakened the connections among communities were getting upper hand in the social life, that had created disharmony in the entire area. Many misguided youths and leaders had become puppets in the hands of the nefarious designs of the champions who stood for divisions and exclusiveness. Many had floated violent movements that pierced the social psyche with fear, hatred, and violence. They were actively supported by entities from beyond our borders through funds and weapons, and the vested interest from within the country had sided with them through overt and covert support systems. That tough times seemed blown away by the concerted efforts of the people and institutions that stood for social cohesion. Now the rules have been properly understood and checked. The communities have become more vigilant and focused in unison with the national stream of life. Violence that prevailed and haunted a few decades before has disappeared, and the units are again in graceful amalgamation with the totality. The nation as a totality is meaningful, alive and vibrant due to the units that uphold the principles of harmony, peace, and togetherness. This is the achievement of education towards integration and prosperity. When Laulina Boragohain, a lass from the Golaghat district of Assam, secured a bronze medal in 64 to 69 kilogram category boxing, it was not only Assam, but the entire nation stood up in applause to congratulate her. She became the new pride of India, representing the aspirations of 150 crores of Indians in the field of sports. Whether it is Mary Kom, Hima Das, or Lovlina, a victory earned by these prodigies unite the nation in oneness, in feelings and pride, spontaneously and instantaneously without any exception. This is how sports become a connecting thread of our national unity, and education has to explore this domain to its fullness. I am very glad to see team representation from the northeast states even in events like Kho-Kho and Kabaddi at national level championships, and their participation is bound to be remarkable in the days to come, with the encouragement being given to sports these days through various schemes and projects. Good number of sports schools have already come up, and many are ready to be inaugurated soon in many parts of the region. The people of Northeast have the potential and naturally bestowed stamina and sharpness in many events of intense competition. The agility of their body structure and closeness to nature offer scope in gymnastics, boxing, shooting, and football. Lessons emphasizing the unique features of the Northeast and its people are required to find place in the syllabi and curriculum of other Indian states. This helps the general Indian populace to gather authentic information and strengthen their awareness about the richness of this part of the nation. An appreciable step towards this has been taken up by the NCERT, and the textbooks that have been brought out by this agency gives appropriate coverage to the life of the people of this area. The landscape of the Northeast comprises hills, mountains, and plains. The highest point being Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh, with an altitude of 10,000 feet, lies in the middle Himalayas. The Northeast is the gateway of India's richest biodiversity zone, comprising numerous wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, biosphere reserve, and home to many endemic species. The flora of inaccessible forest terrains of many parts of the region remains unexplored even today, and the inner forest regions are open to further research and exploration. The Brahmaputra is the strongest symbol of India's unique features. It is the river that collects the highest volume of water from the surrounding hills and mountains, forms the Brahmaputra plains, and ultimately joins with the Ganges at the Sundarbans and empties its massive flow in the Bay of Bengal at Ganga Sagar. The only male river in the family of other Indian rivers, its tributaries and distributaries, along with the main river, has woven the pulse of life in the region. Like any other Indian river, it holds holy ghats, pilgrimage centers, and ancient as well modern temples and cities of historical significance. Various dance forms, folklores, songs, and theatre creativities have evolved around this river, closely connecting the people of the region one way or the other with the river tangibly. The river and its potential need further utilization through education in bringing people much more close emotionally. Integration is a process of connecting minds through love, and our feelings for the river play a complementary role in fulfilling this. Integration is the process of holding together the components. I referred this earlier too. The components contribute to the overall growth, maintenance, and evolution of the whole, that is the nation in our consideration. The connection is dynamic and organic. The parts are not like that of a machine. In a machine, it is an assembly of constituents. These constituents, being parts, can disintegrate in due course, irrespective of the care rendered. But the case of the nation is different. It is not mere an assembly. It is not mere a geographical entity. More than that, a nation has cultural, socio-religious and spiritual dimensions. It is like the body of a person. Hands, legs, head, etc. are parts, but these parts are not like the assembled components of a machine, but vitally connected by the channels of life. There is no existence of any component without the whole organism taken into consideration. The hand cannot conceive the idea of independence. Nourishment and care to any part is in fact the attention to the totality. It is true to the nation too. Hence we have to go with this assertion that nation is an extension of man. Our India to us is an extension of our people, our feelings, aspirations and collective consciousness. Education, accepting this thought and nurturing the channels of our connections as one integrated and interdependent totality is the need of the hour. That nation building education, as conceived by sages like Swami Vivekananda, Rishi Aurobindo and the sages and saints of the like, is being given thrust in many parts of the Northeast. Strengthening the similarities and uniting principles is the focus of this education, not exaggerating the discords and superficial differences. In this process, we need to be aware of the challenges that have been getting addressed and will be addressed in the days to come. There are hundreds of communities spread across the length and breadth of the Northeast region. Each one has a distinct language with or without script. Absence of a common language is often projected as a challenge to integrate the people of the nation. The progressive communities may attempt to dominate or overshadow the slow-growing ones. There are apprehensions that some of the languages may become oblivious and become extinct. But this is a projected fear and exaggeration. Immediately after independence, attempts were made to make English as the linking language with the active support of the church and its votaries. This became successful to some extent in one or two hill states which were isolated deliberately by the continued British policies like the archaic inner line permit system. But this could not succeed and English continued with the status as a language of the foreigners who enslaved us, and the people do not have any emotional affinity to it, irrespective of its importance in higher education. The influence of Hindi movies and the common people who came to live in the Northeast from the Hindi speaking areas of the country made long-lasting impacts, and Hindi became more acceptable and homely to the people to communicate, and in many parts Hindi along with Assamese serve the purpose of a link language. The changed perceptions and policies initiated by the government have gone that far that now textbooks are being prepared for the languages of the communities. Under the new education policy assured now, primary education has to go in the mother tongue, and active efforts are on to bring out scripts and textbooks to such languages which had no written scripts and texts. This has given rise of hope in communities that intensely want to thrive with the language of their heart and ancestors. When every community has its language preserved and enriched, acceptance to the national language as the link language of the people is a natural consequence. Another projected challenge is that of deprivation in development in terms of communication, roads and infrastructure. This has become a past story now. People cannot be fooled anymore as roads, net connectivity, infrastructure, etc. are being fast developed now. Even the remote villages have schools with good infrastructure. towers for connectivity, for digital and online processes, roads reaching up to the borders, hydroelectric and solar power solutions for daily life. Schools where patriotic feelings are given due importance have changed the perceptions of the communities towards their responsibility toward the nation. This is evident in the number of people ready to join in the defense forces of the country and in the readiness of the people to go to any part of the Indian nation to serve and live. In most of the schools and colleges, units of national service schemes function, contributing to society through voluntary service activities. Good number of National Cadet Corps units is also functional. One major challenge that the Northeast witnessed in the first few decades of independence is that of boundary disputes and ascertaining the community rights. Such challenges have been suitably addressed by the collective efforts of the national and local level leadership, and that have become things of the past now. Some remnants of those tendencies which remain in some hill tracts are getting addressed for permanent solutions. The challenge of education is to address the divisive tendencies in the minds of the people. Traveling in the Northeast, one may notice that every community member is eager and much concerned of me and my community. This is true to many other parts of the country. In many cases, the communal feelings become so strong and narrow that members fail to see the point of view of any other community other than theirs. Education needs to address this, and schools that pay attention in enlarging the mind space to encompass everyone in the nation as one shown how to grow in numbers. This is the process of man making, and nation building becomes easier and smoother once we succeed in this process. Man making is the process of growing out from binding local emotions and sentiments to that of national emotions and sentiments. In our vision, this process of growing out doesn't stop there either. It makes man universal in appreciating the oneness of the entire creation as an integrated whole, often highlighted by saints and poets like Rabindranath Tagore as Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. There are many unsung heroes in the communities of the Northeast. They resisted the colonial rule and hegemony in their own unique ways. There are Gaidan Lius, Kanakalatas, Matmar Jamos, and many more known and unknown heroes. Many supported Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose when he entered the Northeast with his Indian National Army soldiers in 1944. Their life and deeds have to become part of the curriculum in schools so that people remember their contribution and generate a sense of pride and identification with those forgotten heroes. Schools that are observing the anniversaries of their births and highlighting their deeds through role plays, drama, songs and stories are doing a commendable contribution towards integration. Here I would like to highlight a few simple suggestions for strengthening the ongoing process of integration through education. First, there are institutions which either do not observe or neglect national days like the Day of Independence and the Republic Day. These days are declared holidays to students in many of the schools and colleges. This needs to change. Institutions of education need to celebrate these days to nurture the feeling of oneness among the growing generation in the most appropriate manner of decorum and elegance. Second, in many areas, in spite of the status of the national language, Hindi doesn't find place as a language to study. This needs to be addressed with all stakeholders of education, and acceptance to the language should grow. It is ironical to observe the craze for English among our people, both in urban and rural areas, even at the cost of the mother tongue and the national language. People prefer to float in the false pride of English education at the cost of the languages of the locality and the land. Loss of language is the first step towards self-alienation, and the groups with vested interests are active in the Northeast to keep the students away from their roots and heritage. Third, schools can design programs to respect and worship the rivers and the mountains that are closely knitted with the lives of the people. Such events foster and strengthen the emotional bond of people with these living symbols of culture and civilization. They are connections in the physical world with the symbolic impact in the psychological makeup of man. Next, every community in the Northeast has produced men and women of achievement. There are known or anonymous persons who have contributed to the nationwide freedom spirit and movement. Their contributions have to be brought to the limelight, and children need to know about them. This cultivates patriotism effortlessly. As we are now celebrating the 75th year of independence, I had an opportunity to interact with a group of secondary level students recently. I had asked them to name a few freedom fighters from the Northeast, but the response was far below to expectation. The same adolescent children can spontaneously name a good number of cricketers or movie artists and singers of the national and western genre. Next, research has to focus on unearthing the connecting threads among our people rather than creating arbitrary ideas of division and dissension. Archaeological excavations in many parts of the Northeast have come out with outstanding findings on the flow of the same cultural and civilizational ethos in the entire Himalayan and sub-Himalayan landscape. There are idols of Ganesha, Lord Shiva, and many feminine images of the Mother Goddess excavated even from the dense forest regions of the Northeast. Surprisingly, many villages in the Northeast has the word Ram associated with them. Next, the indigenous sports and games have to be promoted through the schools during the games periods. These games have been designed to ensure the holistic development of the individual right from an early age, promote stamina and endurance in the body and the mind. A presentation on education and integration is incomplete if we do not refer the ideas of two modern nation builders. Both had great convictions and had visualized the nation as a vibrant continuity and totality. Both had clarity on the role India has to play in the Committee of Nations. Both shared faith that India has to show light to the world, and our vision and ideals of life are more spiritual than materialistic. When one exclaimed that India would once again regain its supreme glory as Jagat Guru and radiate her wisdom to the restless world, the other believed that India would establish an ideal state of Rama Rajya, where the highest human ideals can be practical and persisting. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi says, I quote, "By education I mean an all-round drawing out of the best in child and man, body, mind and spirit. Literacy is not the end of education, not even the beginning. It is one of the means whereby man and woman can be educated. Literacy in itself is no education." Gandhiji emphasized discipline and character as outcomes of the process of education. Peace and harmony are the goals of an education system. Self-reliance, hard work, Swadeshi and mother tongue are the other ideals of education as propagated by Gandhian school of thought. Again, I quote Gandhi. Development of the moral character, development of the whole, all are directed towards the realization of the ultimate reality, the merger of the finite being into the infinite. The practical shape of Gandhi's ideals reveals a sad picture of failure and disappointment. The partition itself is a glaring example. The principles he followed were right in their essence, but in practice they failed in ensuring the integration of undivided India. Probably that might be the reason critics often refer his ideals as utopian and outdated. The educational policies that successive governments followed could not do justice with Gandhian ideals on self-reliance, discipline and character. His own followers were seen drifting from his path when they were exposed to power and associated opportunities. This had its reflection in the northeast population too. The people developed a false idea that government means an opportunity to exploit and misappropriate public resources. As the leadership showed the wrong ways, the generations that evolved under their policies followed suit, and that resulted in most of the turbulence in the hills and plains which were otherwise simple, plain, moral and peace-loving. Much earlier to Gandhi, the visionary sage Swami Vivekananda had shared almost the same ideals on education. The Swami said, "Our character has disappeared. Our English education has destroyed everything and left nothing in its place. Our children have lost their politeness. To talk nicely is degrading. To be reverential to one's elders is degrading. Irreverence has been the sign of liberty. It is high time that we go back to our old politeness. The reformers have nothing to give in place of what they have taken away. Yet, in spite of the most adverse surroundings of climate, etc., we have been able to do much. We have to do much more. I am proud of my people. I do not despair. And I am seeing daily a wonderful future in my mental visions. Take greatest care of these young ones on whom our future depends." These words too give thrust in the man-making aspect of education. Gandhi was probably repeating what Vivekananda had said. It has to be evaluated hereafter whether Vivekananda's followers are able to live his vision where Gandhi's followers failed miserably. In giving practical shape to the Swami's ideals lie our nation's hope and future aspirations. For Swami Vivekananda is a lighthouse, an unfailing fountain of direction and mastery. I quote, "It is culture that withstands shocks, not a simple mass of knowledge. We all know in modern times of nations which have masses of knowledge, but what of them? They are like tigers, they are like savages, because culture is not there. Knowledge is only skin deep, as civilization is, and a little scratch brings out the old savage. Such things happen. This is the danger. Teach the masses in the vernaculars, give them ideas, they will get information. But something more is necessary, give them culture. Until you give them that, there can be no permanence in the raised condition of the masses." Unquote. I salute the Master 1,000 times for these prophetic words. Skin-deep education hides the savage for the time being. A mild stimulus brings out the beast in man. The world wars that we witnessed in the 20th century are proof to these prophetic utterances. The humble people of the Northeast are of no exception to it. A few of the modern educated youths and adults have fallen prey to the shallowness of vigorously propagated exclusive ideologies, got alienated from their ancestors and spiritual energies, moved away from the traditional cultural moorings, and took the help of guns and other lethal weapons to cause wounds in the national psyche. Obeying their remote masters, they were successful in making the Northeast a hotspot of violence and hatred. But their designs have been checked by counter-nurturing forces and patterns of piety and understanding. If teachers and social workers who derive their motivation from savants like Vivekananda and Gandhi can spread the message to each household here that once your connection with your ancestry and culture is lost, you are uprooted forever to dance in tune like puppets in the hands of diabolic agents of evil. That is enough to ensure integration and of the land in permanence. I am sure this is taking shape and bound to happen. As the Swami said, the signs of the northeast horizon, where the sun rises first in the nation, are vitalizing and assuring indeed. Every community, tribal or non-tribal in the northeast, upholds the attitude of reverence to the elders, to the memory of the ancestors, to the symbols of heritage. This is the strength of culture here. Education has to nurture this. If formal education fails in this, as many schools are averse to this, the families have to preserve their age-old practices vigorously. Parents, being an important pillar and stakeholder of education, can influence the schools where their children study to take due care in inculcating and promoting the attitude of reverence and humility in the minds of the young ones. There is a community in the western Arunachal Pradesh which even have sitting arrangements for a meeting respecting the age and experience of the community elders. The youths pay utmost respect to the elders, and even if their opinions differ on issues, such differences are aired in the most subtle and culturally acceptable ways. What Vivekananda laments on irreverence as a direct aftermath of the formal British education policies could not penetrate deep even today in the northeastern communities. They have been successful in preserving the tradition of respect and reverence in spite of the modern liberal trends. This is an aspect of glory and strength supportive to the process of integration. Friends, this talk remains inconclusive if I do not mention some of the unique features of the Northeast. People take pride in these aspects. These have to be shared too and be known by populations living in the other parts of our voluminous country. This narrows the gap in information and erases the cloudiness prevailing due to lack of appropriate information and misrepresentation of facts. These features help you to paint an apt picture of the region in your mind. Let us keep our lens on a few of such points of pride and prestige. Assam is the home of one-horned rhinos, Rhinoceros unicornis. Kaziranga National Park shelters this endangered animal of interest. The largest share of India's orchids is found in the northeast. More than 600 species have been so far reported from the state of Arunachal Pradesh itself. The Brahmaputra is the wildest and most massive river in the entire country. The highest rainfall in our country falls in places like Mausangram and Cherrapunji, which are in the state of Meghalaya. Assam is the largest producer of tea in India. Asia's second largest Buddhist monastery is in Tawang, Arunachal Pradesh. It was through Tawang His Holiness the Dalai Lama escaped to India in 1959 when his kingdom Tibet was swallowed by the expansionist plots of China. Parashuram Kund, located in Arunachal Pradesh, is a Hindu pilgrimage center where thousands of devotees gather on every Makar Sankranti day for a holy dip. Situated in the Lohit river, it is believed that sage Parashuram had washed off his sins at this place after eliminating the arrogant kings in several rounds. Kanakalata, one of the youngest martyrs of freedom struggle, hails from Gohpur of Assam, responding to the call of do or die by Mahatma Gandhi during the Quit India agitation in 1942. She participated in protests against the British atrocities and was shot dead by the British police. Her martyrdom is an inspiration to all patriots of India. Much earlier, another proud son of Assam, Lachit Boraphukan, had made the invading Mughal forces to retreat in the War of Sarai Ghat. In spite of a superior army and weaponry, the Mughals could not conquer an inch of land in Assam. This legendary warrior leader is a symbolic icon today of our successful resistance to aggression by the ruthless invaders. Ma Kamakhya's temple in the Nilachal of Guwahati is an important center of yoga and tantra. It is believed that when Parameshwara was carrying Sati's body from the sacrificial fire of her father's Yagashala, out of his anger and grief, the body parts got scattered and fell at different places on the land, and the genitals of the mother fell here. This temple is referred as the guardian deity of Assam. The city of Sonitpur, modern Tezpur, was the capital of Banasura, and whose daughter Usha fell in love with Aniruddha, the grandson of Sri Krishna. Legend says that there was ferocious war between the Yadavas and the forces of Banasura, and the city got drenched in blood. It is thereafter called the City of Blood. Bhishmaka Nagar in Arunachal Pradesh is connected to King Bhishmaka of the Mahabharata era. It was from here that Krishna took Rukmini as his spouse. The largest temple in Assam is Shivadol, located in Shivasagar. It is one of the highest Shiva temples in our country with a height of 104 feet. Majuli is another wonder. It is in Brahmaputra. It is the largest river island in the world. It is the most important seat of Vaishnavism in northeast with its many monasteries called satras. The island preserves the original traditions and cultural expressions of the people of Assam even to these days. Simanta Shankaradeva and Mahadeva were the foremost acharyas of Vaishnavism in Assam. They wrote plays to perform on stage to entertain people, and through that made them understand high philosophical principles and truths. This theatric presentation is called Bhavana. Any visit to Northeast remains incomplete without watching the superb performance of Bhavana artists on stage. Bihu is another spectacular dance form that needs special mention. It is a dance performed by the people during the festival of Bihu in April. It is the most popular folk dance of the region. The dancers sway their bodies gracefully to the rhythm of folk music, which leaves the audience spellbound, thoroughly entertained and enchanted. Vasishta Ashram near Guwahati is another important pilgrimage location. The ashram is the meeting point of three rivulets, namely Sandhya, Kanta and Lalita, merging together to create a unique natural setting. It is a place associated with the life of sage Vasishta. When the Pandavas were in exile, they had come to the northeast and Arjuna married the Manipuri princess Chitrangada during that time. It is also believed that Ulupi, another wife of Arjuna, hailed from the Naga hills. Last but not the least, the most significant catalytic role being played in national integration by the teachers deserve attention and highlight. As former President late Sri Abdul Kalamji rightly said, the teacher is an important pillar in the process of education. It is she who molds and influences the character, opens the inner eye of the children, expands the mind, infusing values and skills. It is the teacher who is always in struggle to live up to the expectations of the student by playing different roles in utmost sincerity and integrity. Such teachers of integrity, when trained in national perspective and needs, become the fittest agents of social transformation, harmony, and prosperity. The training is a priority, and it should focus on integrating our success stories as a nation to the young minds, irrespective the subjects of their instruction. The training should orient the ordinary tutors to mighty nation builders, and they should be able to transmit the heritage and glory of the nation to the upcoming generation in their classrooms. The list can continue with more and more connecting, glorifying threads. But as we have constraints of time, let us conclude with once again what Vivekananda had to say on India. If there is any land on this earth where humanity has attained its highest towards gentleness, towards generosity, towards purity, towards calmness, above all the land of introspection and of spirituality, it is India. Continuing our attainments in gentleness, generosity, purity, calmness and spirituality is the outcome to reach through education. These outcomes make every citizen in the Northeast deeply connected to the motherland of ours. The Samskrita shloka says, Pratishta yatra vidyaya, Shilasya cha shramasya cha, Unnatam shikaram rashtram, Tat prapnoti na samshayah. It means where the people adore knowledge, character and hard work, that nation reaches the pinnacle of glory undoubtedly. Let my India, India eternal, reach that glory by the excellence of knowledge systems, sterling character and sheer hard work. This is the self-reliant Atmanirbhar Bharat of ours, where the Himalaya with its innumerable layers along with the plains in the northeast stands strong with its simple people, proclaiming unity and integrity in one voice and emotion to continue our national existence with grand dynamism and symphony. Jai